Welcome to Vacuum Wars, and to our review of the Roborock Qrevo Edge. It's the newer robot vacuum model from Roborock that has almost identical features as their flagship model, the Qrevo Curv. In fact, other than the lack of a curvy dock, I can't find many differences at all between the Edge and the Curv, except for one very important difference, which I think gives the Edge the edge. We bought one and have been testing it in various ways over the past few weeks, and I was very impressed. It ended up ranking very high on our top 20 list on our website, as you would expect given that the Curv, its specs and features twin, has been ranking number 1 there for several weeks now. In this video, I'll explain everything you need to know about the Qrevo Edge, so links in the description, and let's get started. Starting off with the basics, the Qrevo Edge is a LiDAR-based smart robot vacuum mop combo with obstacle avoidance sensors and a fully featured charging dock that washes and dries its mop pads and more. The Qrevo Edge has the same list price as the Curv, but at least early on, the Edge has been selling at a significantly cheaper price. So if that trend continues, then the Edge is a no-brainer buy over the Curv, but check the links for both in the description below. One of the big pros with the Qrevo Edge is the hardware features on the robot itself. It has Roborock's latest brushes, like the Duo Divide main brush, which is essentially 2 brushes with a gap in the middle, which channels longer hair to the center, which leads to less tangles, previously only seen on the Curv. It also has their new side brush design, which also reduces tangles, and it automatically extends when it senses corners, which is a game changer for corner coverage. It did well in the various hair tests we do too. For example, 0% of the 7-inch hair got tangled in its brushes, where the average is almost 40%, and it picked up a better than average 80% of the flattened 2.5-inch pet hair on carpet. Those 2 brushes also worked well together at sweeping up debris off the surfaces of hard floors and carpets, where it did excellent with everything we tested it with. It was also much better than average with carpet deep cleaning, where we embed sand into medium pile carpet and weigh the dust bin before and after a timed run. It had virtually identical scores with things like our suction and airflow tests as the Curv across the board. Another cool hardware thing is that, like the Curv, the Edge has a mechanism that raises its front wheel so that it can cross thresholds up to 40 millimeters, which is almost double what robot vacuums were able to cross before this. And once I set up where the threshold was in the app, the Edge kind of tested the threshold at first and then realized it needed to get a running start to cross it, which it did both coming and going from that room. So I think it works great, and it's going to allow a lot of people to have robot vacuums that otherwise couldn't because of threshold issues. Its multifunctional dock is a huge pro. It has all the features that the other flagship robots do. It automatically empties its dust bin into a 2.7-liter disposable bag, which Roborock says will last 7 weeks before needing to be changed. But it also washes its 2 mop pads with hot water, dries them with hot air, and refills its mop tank with water or a water solution mix. It also has slightly larger water tanks than the Curv because of the different shaped docks. It has an internal dirty water sensor which detects how dirty the mop water is in order to determine how much it needs to wash its mop pads or if the floors need additional passes. It has a self-cleaning mopping tray as well as the ability to remove the tray for periodic deep cleaning. The mopping system itself was good as well. It uses 2 spinning mop pads, one of which automatically extends to mop edges more closely. In our dried-on stain mop test, the Edge got a 106, which is above average, but is similar to the Roborock Qrevo. But there was a big difference here which benefits the Edge over the Qrevo, which I'll come back to later. Another pro is that it has obstacle avoidance sensors. It uses the same system as the Curv, which is 3D structured light plus an RGB camera. It's trained to recognize 62 objects, which is less than many of its flagship competitors, and as far as its obstacle avoidance performance in our tests, it was just okay. Better than not having it, of course, but only a little above average, avoiding only about 66% of the objects we tested, which was the same basic score as the Curv, but it's generally one of the areas where Roborock has lagged behind some of its premium competitors, in my opinion. Another pro is its battery life. It has one of the larger batteries in the industry with an official battery life of 240 minutes on low power. We tested it on its other power settings on a fixed floor plan and determined it to have a significantly higher than average efficiency at 1.9 minutes per percentage point and an estimated 1,677 square feet per charge, both of which were again nearly identical to the Qrevo Curv scores. Its navigation was a pro. It uses a top-mounted LiDAR to map and navigate your house. It has multi-level maps, fast mapping, and it had great coverage. It seemed really smart, it didn't get stuck, and again, it had nearly identical overall navigation scores as the Curv. The last pro I'll mention is the app. It's one of the best apps in the business, I always say. It has really high ratings on the app stores. It gives you granular control over almost all the features of the robot and the dock, and it's updated frequently. Moving on to the cons. Besides its lackluster obstacle avoidance, which I've already mentioned, the other con is about its water usage during the mop test. I'll talk about this in an upcoming video where I'm retesting most of the robot vacuums I own to see how much water they leave behind by weighing a paper towel on a fixed area after the run, because I believe this is way more important than I used to think. But it looks like the Qrevo Edge and the Qrevo Curv both use more water than average, making them more prone to streaks than some of the others. However, the Qrevo Curv uses almost double the amount of water than the Qrevo Edge does, which makes streaks much more likely with the Curv than with the Edge. This is something that I think Roborock can fix in a software update if they wanted to, but in the meantime, you should just use both of these on their lowest water settings for best results. But the bottom line is that they both use a lot of water, but the Edge uses almost half as much across all its settings, which is good, and all things being equal, the Edge, therefore, is the clear choice for mopping because of this. So, this makes our final rankings very interesting. And for context, the Qrevo Curv has ranked number 1 on our top 20 list for several weeks now. After adding up all the scores, I have the Qrevo Edge ranking number 2, slightly below the Qrevo Curv, mostly because the Curv had slightly better scores on some tests like the 2.5-inch pet hair pickup test, even though if I ran that test 5 times in a row, they probably would be tied since they have all the same specs and features. So it's a really close score either way you look at it. However, by the time you're watching this, I wouldn't be surprised if the Roborock Qrevo Edge is our new number 1 pick, because by then I should be done testing all the other robot vacuums' water scores, and I'll update the algorithm of our top 20 list to penalize robots that use too much water to mop, which will almost certainly mean that the Qrevo Curv loses its top spot to the Qrevo Edge, and if the price remains similar to the way it's priced now, that makes the Qrevo Edge an obvious no-brainer if you can deal with the so-so obstacle avoidance systems on both. Links in the description, and be sure to subscribe to Vacuum Wars before you leave. Thanks for watching. All of the links in the description are updated regularly to reflect our current favorite vacuums in multiple categories. You'll also find links to the Vacuum Wars website in the description, where we have more detailed lists of our favorite products, like our new top 20 robot vacuums list, which is updated weekly.